Welcome into episode 347 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, we are officially 1 week into training camp for the Boston Bruins, albeit the first day was off ice, physical testing and stuff like that. So we've got about two or three practices, a black and gold scrimmage, 2 preseason games, and I think some opinions needed to be changed heading into the most recent preseason game against the Capitals from some players in particular, and we will get into if those opinions have altered. So, Bridget and Scott, first of all, how are you guys doing? And then let's jump into some opening shifts regarding the first week of training camp.
I'm doing good. Our website was down this morning, so I had a little bit of a crisis to deal with before recording, but it's finally back up. I was able to post my column off Tuesday night's preseason game, which was about Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov, who I know we're going to get into. My opening shift, actually, I'm going to change on the fly from what we discussed before the show, because the one obvious story is, still not game related, and that is Jeremy Swayman not being signed now a week into camp. We talked, I brought up the examples from the past of guys who signed early in camp, Pasternak on the first day, McAvoy 3 days in, Carlo 6 days in. Well, Wednesday is 7 days in, so we're now past that, it's okay if he misses the first few days. Like, we're now a week in. We're now going on to week 2 of Jeremy Swayman not being on the ice. And the latest update here came from Pierre LeBrun on Tuesday, TSN Insider, who said that the last he checked in on Tuesday and the latest that he heard was there's still ongoing dialogue, but it's status quo. Deal is still not there. He said he gets a sense that the real deadline for this was always opening night more so than the start of camp. That neither side really saw the start of camp as, any sort of deadline. He said Swayman still wants an 8-year deal. That has not changed, so he's not looking for a bridge deal. Bruins also looking for a long-term deal, although he didn't specify if that's 8 years or something a little less than that. So, really what I take from that is, doesn't really sound like there's any real update other than I guess it's encouraging that Swayman still wants 8 years. It's not like he's changing his mind and going, you know what, screw it, give me 2 years and, I'll cash in when I'm an unrestricted free agent. But yeah, we are now, I think I said, if it lingers into, a second, third week is when I would start to get a little concerned about opening night. And we're getting there. I think I've been more optimistic than most that this gets done by opening night. And gun to my head, I would still say it does. But, we are now entering that territory where I have a little more doubt.
Yeah, and my opening shift has to do with goaltending too. For a second, I was like, Scott's poaching my opening shift. But it's not about Swayman. So it's about the goaltending that we've seen so far in the preseason. We've gotten a taste of Bussy. We got Korpisalo last night and DiPietro twice. And I guess I'd like to get your opinions first on Korpisalo, who so far has looked like the best out of the 3 goaltenders. And then the other 2, I think, have been a little bit disappointing. Bussy let up a soft goal. DiPietro, I think, had 2 tough preseason games so far. And they're not playing full preseason games. They're playing half a game each night, almost exactly half. So, just your first quick thoughts on that before we get to Brian's opening shift.
Well, I think it's very important and encouraging that he is the best of the goalies so far, considering Scott's opening shift, which is that Swayman signing by opening night is not a guarantee, so he could be their starter. And I think just quickly, I'll just say, I feel as though he in his brief time in the game last night before they switched goalies halfway through, just about it appears as though he's allowing the game to come to him. Very small sample size, but that's kind of something that you notice a lot of Bruins goaltenders do historically, maybe except for Tim Thomas, who ironically was the most successful of all of them. But he just seems like he's comfortable just letting the game come to him and just staying in position and just staying sound. I know it was a very, very quick sample, but that was just something that jumped out to me.
Yeah, he only faced 7 shots and he saved them all, which, I mean, obviously 30-minute sample size is small. Stopping 7 shots is not the hardest thing in the world to do. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But early thoughts on him, just, definitely looking better than the other two, even on the quality of shots that he faced. I thought that he had at least one that was a difficult save. He made a save sliding across and squared up to it and made a good stop. And I know I came back home like a crazy person, even though I was at the game and watched part of the game again, and saw and heard Brick analyzing that save. And it was, when you see it slow down, you realize just how difficult it was, more so than at the time live seeing it. So early on, but good signs from him. The other two are going to have to pick it up. If, say Brendan Bussey was somehow to surpass him, he would need to make up some ground.
Yeah, I like what I saw from Korpisalo. I'll save my thoughts till for the sake of not dragging this out and let Brian get to his opening shift. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about Korpisalo more.
So my opening shift has to do with Fabian Lysell, which has been, aside from Jeremy Swayman, the story of the first week of camp, and certainly the story as it pertains to players that are at camp. And look, there will be no backpedaling on what I saw the first week of training camp. He was underwhelming. He was unimpressive during practices, and certainly in the first preseason game against the Rangers. I saw it. You guys saw it. Fans saw it. Media saw it. His own head coach in Boston, hopefully, Jim Montgomery, saw it and even mentioned to the media that he needs to do a little bit more to make the Boston Bruins. And when he says a little bit more, he means a lot more. And the reason why maybe last episode I was disappointed was because he was drafted 3 years ago and has all the skill in the world. And when you see somebody like Matt Poitras come in last year at 19 years old and show maturity, you start to realize, like, okay, Lysell needs to be there now. Like, there's no more kid gloves for him. And last night against the Capitals, I thought it's fair to say was the most important game of his career, of his life. It was probably the most important hockey game of his life as it pertains to his future in hockey, just simply for the fact that, like, he's trying to make the NHL, right? And he doesn't have the luxury of getting going. It's a sprint to the regular season if you're a prospect trying to make an NHL roster. So with that in mind, he completely turned it around and was one of the best players on the ice last night with non-NHL line mates, which is an excuse that I hated seeing against the Rangers. Oh, put him with better players. No, earn it and be the best player regardless. And I was so encouraged even before he scored his goal last night and certainly afterwards, because it's not just about scoring for me with him. It's about everything else. And I thought that all over the ice, he was one of the best players in the ice last night. So going forward, if he's going to be that player, he's going to give the Boston Bruins a really tough decision to make as it pertains to him making the team. If he's the first version of himself we saw throughout training camp, he's not going to make it. We'll see what happens going forward. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Obviously the challenge now is, okay, listen, you can overlook a slow start if the rest of camp is really good. But now the challenge is the rest of camp has to be really good. Like, he has to keep up this level. It can't just be a one-off, or you can't alternate, whether he plays the next preseason game Thursday, or maybe he gets a night off and Saturday's his next game. Like, it can't go back to quiet game. Okay, then he needs to bounce back, and the next game he's good. Like, now you got to build it game after game. Matt Poitras made the team last year because they kept throwing him out there for preseason games, kept giving him opportunities, and he kept rising to meet the challenge. So that's what Lysell and Georgi Merkulov both have to do going forward. But yeah, if Lysell plays like this, like, that's an NHL player. He was aggressive. He used his speed effectively, not just skating into traffic. He made smart decisions with the puck. He, for the most part, had clean entries. Whereas on Sunday, he turned the puck over at the offensive blue line 3 times by my count. He drew 2 penalties. One after his own entry, then going into to retrieve the puck. The other with a good, strong take to the net. Won a couple battles. One late in the third period, he wins down low behind the Capitals' net to keep possession, and then that same shift, he steals the puck in the neutral zone on the back check. So, all that stuff, it's yeah, that's exactly what you want to see and need to see. So credit to him. For as much as we criticized him on Sunday, you have to give him credit for bouncing back and doing all the things that we said, why isn't he doing this? And now we'll see if he can keep it going.
That was a hell of a shot. When I saw that go in, it wrapped around the entire inside post. At first from our angle, because we were on the opposite side of the ice, it looked like it hit post out. And so then we saw the ref pointing into the goal. Oh, it must have hit the inside post. And then you see the replay, and this is the most perfectly placed shot. And, he's not afraid to shoot it in when you give him that much space, because he had a lot of space. It was on the power play. He had a lot of space at the top of the dot. Wasn't even a good pass to him, but he corralled it and he got a lot of whip on it, and he just put it right where it needed to go. And it was a beautiful shot. It was one of the nicer shots you'll see. So he came out pretty strong. And it's funny, after the game, we talked to him. He was in a pretty decent mood, and obviously thought he played a better game, puck possession wise, and obviously the goal. And when we talked to Montgomery pre-game or at morning skate, you said, Scott, he mentioned Lysell needs to have a better game. Well, apparently he didn't tell that to Lysell, because someone asked him a question about it, and Fabian was like, oh, he never said that to me. Basically, I'm sure coach said all right, you got to work on this, this, and this, but never was like, hey, if you don't pick it up, this isn't going to be good for you for the preseason.
Lysell said he didn't talk to Montgomery between games.
That
was a little weird.
That was weird. When I heard him say that, I was a little taken aback. I think we all were. But the person that he did talk to between games was his Providence head coach, Ryan Mougenel, who he brought up after the game and said that Mougenel told him basically just take it slow, get to your game over the course of the game. You don't have to come out right from the beginning, just build on your game throughout the night. And I think that he did look more comfortable on the ice. I think he took the pressure off himself, which is hard to do when you struggle. So, and you could tell that he wasn't feeling quite as either, I don't want to say nervous, but under pressure, I guess, because it's a high pressure situation to try to make the NHL.
Yeah. And I think the advice that Mougenel gave to him was awesome. And that is, get into the game, keep it simple. And then as the game goes along, now that you've gotten your touches, now you've made a couple of nice, simple plays, you have confidence. Now you can start to just trust your instincts and do a little bit more. But you can't the puck can't just drop in the first period and then you just start going through people's legs and going end to end. It doesn't, and that's not even what coaches want to see in preseason. They want to see that you can do all the little things. And that's exactly what he showed against Washington. And some plays that jumped to my mind about how he did keep it simple. Scott mentioned the zone entries, right? So against the Rangers, he's trying to do too much. Puck, he gets stripped, puck goes the other way. He tries to shoot through 3 people, goes the other way, whatever. Last night against the Capitals, leading into one of his drawn penalties, he regroups in the neutral zone, gets a pass from, I forget which defenseman it was, and with speed, as he's entering the offensive zone on the right blue line, he gives a nice little lateral aerial pass to his teammate that was straddling the blue line. And he just keeps going into the zone. So now the puck's entered the zone. He still has speed. It's now a loose puck that he has the advantage on because everybody else is flat-footed besides him. And then the Capitals defenseman takes him down for a penalty. It's that's zone entry. That's keeping it simple. And you need to utilize your teammates around you as opposed to trying to do it all yourself, which I understand when you're trying to make a team, you feel like, well, how's the coach going to notice me if I'm just deferring to my teammates? Well, ironically, that's what they want to see. They want to see that you can play with others and play smart. Other things that I liked was him giving Tom Wilson a little bit of a cross check and then going hard to the net and getting Wilson. If you're getting the attention from Tom Wilson in a preseason game, it means you're getting under his skin. That means you're engaged in the game. There was before the Tufty goal, Lysell got open in the slot, found the quiet area, got a shot off. The play evolves. He goes to the net. Tufty ends up scoring. He was around the puck all night, and you could just see he was playing with so much more confidence and purpose to his game. And now, as we've talked about earlier in this episode, he needs to continue to do that, because anything shy of that, he's not going to make the team. He has to consistently play this way. And this is where the frustration was coming from, because you see the talent, you know what he's capable of. All summer, he knows he has to make an impression to make the Bruins. There were so many questions as to how are you possibly coming out of the gate for a training camp this, uninspired. But last night, he got the message. And more importantly, with everybody doubting him, myself included, he rose to the occasion with all eyes on him and was one of the best players on the ice. And so it's a great storyline going forward.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned, like settling into the game, getting touches, and then getting confident. And you could see that. Like, you could literally just see that manifest in the way he was playing, where you look at Sunday or even the black and gold game a little bit, where it's like he would get the puck and it's like, okay, let me get up to top speed, and he's flying. And then it's like, now what do I do? And like there wasn't always purpose in what it was, just like go fast and then just hope that leads to something. Whereas on Tuesday, you'd see him get the puck, and even if he wasn't getting up to top speed, he just looked much more confident and like knowing what he wanted to do with it, whether it was pull up and find a teammate, which he did. He made a nice pass to hit a trailer at one point, or protect the puck or take it down low, take it to the net. Like, he just had purpose with it on his stick, and it wasn't just, okay, I'm gonna skate fast and then see what happens. And like I look at Matt Poitras as like a player who has that. I thought Poitras had a good game playing wing. This was his first preseason game, and you saw times where his puck protection was just excellent, where he would just hold a defender off his back, A-frame, keep the puck out of reach. And it's like, even though Poitra's a smaller guy, it's like he just knows he can do that. Whereas like if you would see a less confident player maybe hold on to it and they get ridden into the boards or knocked off the puck, have it poked away because it, like they just don't have the confidence to do that, to hold off an NHL defender. And I think you started to see Lysell play with that kind of confidence that you have to have. And right, it's like a chicken or the egg thing, where it's like, how do you have that confidence if you haven't done it? How do you do it if you don't have the confidence? And it all goes hand in hand. The important thing for Lysell is that he starts to develop that. And I think you saw it Tuesday. I think you saw a player who started to, again, he's not facing a full NHL roster. Like, that still comes with that disclaimer. Capitals had, maybe about a line and a half of NHL guys out there. But, on an NHL rink in a game that he needed to be good in, started to realize, like, okay, I can make things happen. Like, I can do this.
Yeah. And Brian, I saw you tweet something about how, just responding to some comments on Twitter that were saying like, oh, well, maybe people are being too critical of him because he's not with NHL guys yet, and he'll look much better with NHL guys on his line. Well, he wasn't playing with NHLers last night. His line was Riley Tufty, Jackson Nelson, and then Lysell on the right side. So those are guys that Tufty has a little bit of NHL experience, but it's not like, I think people wanted to see him next to Coyle, and they weren't really going to judge his game until you put him on a line where, you know, he's centered by an NHL center like Charlie Coyle. So, and he still got it done. Now, goal comes on the power play. I forget his unit exactly, but I think maybe it was Brazeau on it, or maybe he was on the first unit, but I'm not sure how much time he really got to play with Frederick and Brazeau, unless they had a little bit of crossover time on the power play. But either way, he was able to get his game going without those NHL guys around him on his team.
Yeah, that was kind of like a mixed unit at the end of the power play. So it was Callahan, Harrison, Tufte, Johnson, and then Lysell were the five on the ice for that power play. So actually, I guess that was pretty much the second unit, except Callahan had come on defense, whereas I think Ian Mitchell had been running that unit mostly.
Yeah, it was because it was a really extended power play. It was like I carried over from the first period, then there was a brief 5-on-3, then there was the rest of the regular one-man advantage. But the primary assist was Callahan, and then Brett Harrison had the secondary. So once again, those aren't NHL guys that were setting up the play. And to be honest with you, that goal was mostly him.
Mm-hmm. But Bridget, to your point though about not playing with NHLers, well, there's a couple of things there. Number one, Charlie Coyle was the Bruins' first. He was pretty much their first line center last year. I mean, or at least when it came down to the playoffs, like he was their most trusted center. I mean, obviously Zacha was moved to the wing, right? And this year he's penciled in as their second line center. The Bruins' big boys aren't playing preseason games early on in training camp, right? Like they're not going to be played until later as you go along. And so like Lysell can't just wait for that opportunity. Like he has to take advantage of whatever line mates he has early on, which is going to be primarily AHL players. But to this point in his career, he's also an AHL player. And while, yes, the Washington game was against mainly AHL players on both teams, so was the Rangers game. And so that's why it's like you question, and we talked about this briefly last podcast, but it's like that's what he's used to. He's used to AHL line mates and AHL opponents. So if he didn't show that he was the best player on the ice or one of them against the Capitals, well, now you're talking about back-to-back games with AHL line mates against AHL opponents where he wasn't noticeable. So while he played amazing against the Capitals and it wasn't against NHLers, it doesn't matter. I needed to see him do what he's always done, which is perform against that minor league, competition. So he needed to show that first and foremost, and he did. And so to Scott's point earlier, he deserves all the credit in the world for responding last night. And going forward, let's hope we see more of the same, because he has the natural skill and ability when he plays that way with NHL players to be an NHL player himself. But he had to show us. And until last night, guys, it's not just this camp, it's last camp. He was drafted 3 years ago. So, and I believe last night may have been his first NHL goal, obviously it being preseason, but an NHL environment goal. I could be wrong about that. But if that's the case, that goes a long way for his confidence too, I'm sure. So this isn't just a response to the Rangers game. It was a response to the week of practices leading up to it and not being able to take advantage of training camps prior. It had been building. Maybe now he's finally turning that leaf and has that confidence he needs to go forward and make this team, because he talked about it last night with Nesson. He said that he feels much more confident this training camp than he ever has before. Well, up until last night, we didn't see that. Now we've seen it. Now, Fabian, run with the opportunity and don't look back.
Do you guys think he gets all 7 games? Like, is there a chance he gets all 7 just to take a look at him? Because normally guys get half of the games, but if he's starting to look good, don't you think they're going to want to keep looking at him more and more?
I don't think it'll be all 7, only because, like, honestly, I can't think of a time when one player played every game.
I can't either, but I feel like
Quadra even missed 1 last year.
Yeah,
but I could definitely see. I could definitely see there like 5 or 6 for him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's a different situation because I feel like they want him to prove himself so bad that he might just be kind of a different scenario for him. And if I say they're on the fence, like I feel like if he misses one, maybe it'll be one of the next two, and then they'll play him the rest of the way. Because they're going on a road trip right now. Thursday they're playing against the Rangers again. Saturday they're against Philadelphia. So maybe he misses one of the road games, but I do feel like after this performance, don't you think they would just want to throw him right back out there?
Well, yes, but what I would also say is that if they're thinking they want to give him a look on a certain line, namely with Charlie Coyle and Brad Marchand, well, Brad Marchand is not playing in games right now and might not all preseason. He is, however, now skating with the team. He was on the ice Tuesday morning with the non-game group, went through a full practice in a no-contact jersey. So if you wanted to get that look, that's going to be in practice. So I could see that where, Lysell, maybe isn't playing in the game that night, but he's practicing with Marchand and Coyle that morning. And that non-game group was out there for over an hour Tuesday morning. So that was a full real practice. So I could see something like that, but yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of games though, for sure. And, on the line mates thing, if you play the way he played Tuesday, you earn your way back up to NHL line mates, because let's remember, he did start camp on a line with Charlie Coyle. And, part of the reason that's been split up is because Lysell's playing games and Coyle isn't yet. But I think part of it is also Lysell struggled. So it's there's not really any pressure to keep him there until he shows that he deserves it. So, I think now he gives them a reason to potentially go back to that. We'll see that they have 2 full groups on the ice Wednesday, full practice. I will not be there. I have a dentist appointment in the middle of the day, unfortunately.
You getting a root canal?
I'd much rather be at the hockey. But we'll be keeping our eyes on line.
He's a hockey guy. Scott's a hockey guy.
I mean, hockey players get a lot of dental work done. So
does hockey media. Now, look, guys, the one thing I will say as well, and this has been Fabian Lysell's skating has been well documented since before he was drafted, and certainly covered in Boston between fans and media alike since being drafted. But I just want to reiterate, last night against the Capitals, oh my God, was it obvious how elite his skating is. Yet against the Rangers, he was invisible. When you have that skating ability, you shouldn't be invisible on any night just based off of your speed. So last night he was able to show, this kid can fly. He has a very powerful stride. I think his East-West game sometimes gets lost. I think that'll be something to keep for him to incorporate more so at the NHL level as well. But he has not just NHL skating and speed. He has high-end NHL skating and speed ability. So if he doesn't make the Bruins, it's not because of a lack of that. It's the other things.
His GM and juniors with the Vancouver Giants said the only skaters he saw at that level who were better than Lysell were Connor McDavid and Pavel Bure. Now, that's probably a little bit of a biased stretch, but kind of gives you an idea of what, at least one person was throwing on him.
Right. But you see it out there. You see it out there against like last night. Now, Tom Wilson is not the fleetest of foot in the NHL, but there were a couple of NHL players for the Capitals last night that he was going head to head against. And you just see him closing on these defensemen. They have no time when he's on his game. So the skating element is there, and it shouldn't be slept on because there are players that would kill for his natural ability. One of them is Georgi Merkulov, who seems that could be the one thing that might keep him away from the NHL based off what we've seen. Sorry, Bridget, I know you had a thought just then.
It was just that his shot is also at that level that you could say is elite, because he just really places it perfectly, and he gets a lot of whip on it, and the shot falls right into that category too. But I do want to get to Merkulov since we already spent quite a bit of time on Lysell, because he was the other guy who we said needed to pick it up after preseason game 1. And he had an assist. It was a really nice assist on Brazeau's goal. It was kind of shifty. That's how he is. He'll deceive you. He looked like he's going to the net, then he'll drop a pass back like that, and he finds an open Brazeau. I feel like the goal is like it was such a weird chip that I wasn't sure it was gonna go in, but it goes in for Brazeau, so that's nice to see for him. So yeah, if you guys want to switch over to talking about Merkulov right now, that works for me.
Yeah, and Merkulov also drew a penalty with a good, strong drive to the net. So you like seeing that. I thought he looked better with the puck. Made some good plays away from it. He picked off a pass in the defensive zone, picked off a pass into the slot to kill a scoring chance. So, you want to see that from your center, being in the right spot, having a good, strong stick there. I thought he was, he wasn't as bad as Lysell in the first game, but he was too quiet. He wasn't as great as Lysell in this game. I think Lysell was the clear number 1 star, but Merkulov may well have been the number 2 star. I thought he had a really strong game. Thought he was making plays. Thought he looked pretty confident. I still think his line got pinned into the defensive zone a couple too many times and did end up getting scored on late, although I don't think he was at fault on the goal. It looked like he had his man covered. So, you'd like to see that, because generally when a line's getting pinned in, the center has something to do with it. Like, your center is very important to killing possessions. So still some work to do there. Montgomery also mentioned with Merkulov, Lysell, and really everyone else that he wanted quicker puck movement on the power play. So still things to work on. I think he won 50% of his face-offs. I don't think that's ever going to be a strength. I don't think that's ever going to be a strength for him, but breaking even is probably about the best you can hope for. Like, he just can't get crushed on faceoffs.
Well, he was slightly under. He was 44%. He at one point in the game was above. I think he lost maybe the last 2 or so.
Yeah, so he finished 4 of 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not his strength. But obviously at the NHL level, you need somebody that can keep themselves at least close to 50% because of how important possession is. But yeah, his strength is his 200-foot play.
So I agree with what Scott said. I don't think Merkulov was bad in the first game. I thought he was okay. I didn't think he had a bad game, but I also don't think he had as strong of a game as Lysell did in the second game, but he was still good. The first game, the Bruins' initial opening goal was due to a Georgi Merkulov forecheck. Now, he got knocked over, but he caused disruption, and then he got the puck back to the point to Billy Sweezy, who got the puck on net, and then who was it that scored that first goal? Kepke.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't a dazzling assist like the one he had for Brazeau in game 2, but his fingerprints were all over that opening goal of the preseason. So I took note of that. The rest of the game, maybe a little quiet. The Capitals game, that behind the back pass to Brazeau, you guys talked about. I mean, it was great. Very, very high end skill. So my question with Merkulov is, does he have the strength and the speed to do at the NHL level what he seemingly does with ease in the minors? And it's a major difference, obviously. Like, the game happens so much faster at the NHL level. The decision making happens so much quicker, and your time and space is just completely taken away. It's why only you have to have a certain level of skating ability to get to do what you have to do. And if you don't have magical skating like Lysell, you have to have some other attributes that Merkulov doesn't have, which is like size and strength, right? So to compensate for that lack of speed. So he just has he has a ton of offensive ability. He has a great shot. He's a great passer. He thinks the game well, especially offensively, but he does lack size and strength and skating. And those three elements missing all three of those, they don't really help anybody trying to make the NHL. It's not that he's a slow skater. He's a good skater, but there's a difference between breakaway speed at the NHL level and keeping up. I think he has keeping up speed at the NHL, but I don't know if he has that breakaway speed where he can do what he does in the minors.
And
so we'll find out.
We talked about this before, but more than likely, because of how well Matt Potter's doing, and we're pretty certain he's making the team out of camp and probably holding on to that job for the whole season, it's going to be one or the other, right? So Georgi Merkulov has to keep up with the preseason that Fabian Lysell is having to try to take that spot. So they're almost each other's competition, even though there are different positions. It's because there's really only one spot open, and you imagine kind of Trent Frederick moving around either center or wing, depending on which one of those guys makes the team or something to that effect. So once one steps it up, the other one kind of has to too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, in theory, there you could have Poitras, Lysell, and Merkulov all on the team, but like that would mean Geeky or Frederick gets bumped to the fourth line, and I don't see that happening. So, and I don't see any of them playing on the fourth line. So, yeah, realistically, like, you know, I think Poitras pretty safe right now, and then it's likely one or zero spots for Merkulov and Lysell, depending on whether they earn it. But yeah, it is hard to envision both of them on the team. You know, and Merkulov has he has the tougher assignment because he's doing it as a center. They see him as a center. He's played center his whole life. I asked Montgomery about, you know, potentially moving him to the wing at the start of camp, and really sounded like that's just not something they're going to do. You know, with Poitras played wing in his 16-year-old season in juniors. You know, that's a little while ago, and it's a very different level, but they think he can play wing. It doesn't seem like they really think Merkulov can make that switch as easily. So he has to do it as a center, and we know the Bruins demand a lot of their centers. So it's, you know, it's an uphill battle, but he took a step in the right direction Tuesday for sure. And again, same as Lysell, like, now let's see if he can continue that. If he plays like that every day in practice, and, you know, I think he's going to get a ton of preseason games, just like Lysell. I think he'll finish with 5 or 6. You know, if he keeps playing like that, he's going to give them a decision to make. If he's inconsistent or has, you know, some quiet games, then he's going to make it pretty easy for them to send him right back to being the number one center in Providence.
And it's not simply a make the team out of training camp tryout here, because there's a numbers game at play as you trim the roster down for opening night. But if Lysell and Merkulov, or one or both, let's say they don't, neither one of them makes a team out of training camp, you at least have to show that you're right there. And if the Bruins need you in a pinch, whether it's through injury or somebody at the NHL level is not performing, or you are just playing so well down in the minors that they want to bring you up, or a combination of the three, you have to show the Bruins, even if you don't make the team out of camp, that you are right there and ready to go. And because that's realistic right now too. Like, players go start the year in Providence all the time, and look at Brazeau last year, and others, and Lorei and Beecher, who was up and down. Like, it happens. And so I would also say, like, if I'm them and they don't make the team out of training camp, don't be discouraged, because if you show well enough and you're like right there, and the Bruins they're 50-50 on you making the team, and they choose to go with the 50% that sends you back down 95, you're right there. So just stay ready, and that's what I want to see too. Like, if they really have a great camp the rest of the way, that's encouraging to me because it tells me that they're ready to go. They just need the opportunity and maybe the numbers game to fall into their favor at some point.
Yeah, and that's tough. Like we've seen that from guys before that everyone thinks is like right there, had a real chance of making the team, but is one of the final cuts. And they go down to Providence and they look like a player who, is feeling down and they let it affect their play. And it's like that might then, that might push off your arrival for that call up, like might push it back. So you're right. Like you would hope either or both, if they are signing Providence, have that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to start here, but I'm going to force them to not keep me here very long. It is tough for a player to get over that disappointment of getting sent down. So, it's a challenge, but you're right. Like if they're going to force themselves into an early call up or one of the first call ups for the season, like that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a Jack Stanika comes to mind for that. But obviously there's been more than that. That's just kind of a recent one. Do you guys have any other thoughts on them? Because there's one thing I want to talk about before we get to our who's up, who's down, and that's special teams.
Sure, go for it.
So I'll start with penalty kill, I guess. Power play has been underwhelming again, but we can get into that a little later. I wanted to start with penalty kill because of something Montgomery brought up in the post game, which is basically because of personnel that was lost in the offseason. And for forwards, that's Jake DeBrusk, who was a penalty killer. Defense, Derek Forbert was a penalty killer, one of their better penalty killers. That was his strong suit. So they're essentially, coach said they're auditioning guys in the preseason to see how they can handle taking time shorthanded and what they look like. So Matt Poitras actually had exactly the same amount of time shorthanded last night as he did the entirety of last season, which was 1 minute and 46 seconds. I thought he didn't look bad. They had him out there with Frederick. At one point, him and Frederick were putting a lot of pressure on, not letting the Capitals even transition. And I thought that he looked okay. I don't know if necessarily he's going to end up being a penalty killer much this season, but I think it's an area of his game that he can improve, and that if he becomes good at it, could be even more of an asset to the team. And obviously, somebody like Trent Frederick back a few seasons ago wasn't much of a penalty killer, and now he is, and he's good at it. So it was just interesting to see Poitras in that role, that he only played 1 minute 46 on the penalty kill in 33 games last season. So maybe we'll see him there a little bit more. But a guy that Monty said he liked what he looked like on the power play was Justin Brazeau, who told us after the game that he was surprised when all of a sudden he heard his number called during penalty kill, and he hops over and he gets out there and he does it. But Montgomery said there was some encouraging sides from him as he tried Brazeau out on the penalty kill.
Yeah, Brazeau probably fits the more traditional mold, right? Like obviously he has the reach. That's going to be big on a penalty kill. He can take away a lot of space just with his stick. So you can definitely see him building that in. With Poitras, like he's so smart that I could absolutely see him killing penalties, as his career goes on. And you think of him as like a Marchand or DeBrusk type penalty killer, where it's like, okay, maybe it's not as much traditional stand in front of a slap shot, have great long stick or whatever, but it's killing plays and, taking off the other way and killing time and maybe making things happen and threatening shorthanded, creating chances. I don't know if that's this year, because I think with Poitras, you're still going to be in a situation where you're probably trying to limit his minutes a little bit, or at least not give him too heavy of a workload. And so if you're already doing that, like you're not going to give him minutes on the penalty kill, right? Like that's not going to be the best use of whatever time you think, he can handle per game. You want him in more 5-on-5 and even power play situations. But I do think down the line, it could be something that he becomes very good at.
Yeah, he kind of did in his penalty killing, not necessarily like in his 5-on-5, remind me a little bit of Marchand, the way that he anticipates the passes and the way that he approaches penalty killing. And, you know, maybe he gets time in a game that the Bruins are in penalty trouble and other guys are tired and you throw him out there for a few shifts on the PK just to try to get other guys a rest. But I think that could be an area of his game that we see more of this year and he could be good at. On defense, like trying to fill in for Derek Forbert's difficult, but you got Nikita Zadorov now. So that one seems like you got that extra guy that can come in, and it's not like, and they all also lose Grzelcyk and Shattenkirk, but those guys really weren't killing penalties. So you kind of replace one big body defenseman that blocks shots with another one, and I think you're okay on the penalty kill back there.
I also think that between, you know, Carlo, Zadorov, and don't forget Andrew Peeke came in last year, and I thought did a really good job on the penalty kill at a time where Derek Forbort wasn't really in the lineup due to injury. So I think we've already kind of seen that Peeke alone can kind of step in and be that Forbort replacement. And then you add Zadorov in the back end. So, you know, all due respect to Forbort, I don't really think they'll miss him much in the PK. I think they have the personnel to pick up the slack for him and be just as good, if not better. And yeah, Pontra's an interesting one because I see him being a shorthanded threat for sure. Like he is so smart. He can pick off, he can telegraph when a defenseman's maybe going across the blue line or maybe doing a little draw pass entering the zone. He can just take off with speed. Think of that goal he scored against Chicago and some goals against Anaheim where he just showed that speed. So, and yeah, great points on Brazo with the reach and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, DeBrusk goes, but again, anytime somebody leaves, it just provides opportunity for somebody else to step in and show that they can do the job equal to or better potentially.
Yeah, and I also wonder if we see Marchand maybe reeled in a little bit on the penalty kill. Obviously, he's getting older. He had, by the end of last season, had 3 injuries that required surgery. Was still playing a lot of minutes last year. Played every game. You know, if you're looking at opportunities to decrease his workload a little bit, like, again, that's where I would start. Like, I would want to keep Brad Marchand in offensive situations. As good as he is on the penalty kill, like, if I can find other guys that can do that, you know, maybe I'm not taking him off entirely, but he's in the third group over the boards, and not, you know, he's not out there to start the penalty kill and then he's back out a minute 20 into it. Like, you know, maybe instead of getting 2.5, 3 minutes of penalty kill ice time per game, he's getting a minute of penalty kill time per game. Like that would also make sense to me and is why you'd want to take a look at some other options.
He's just so good though. Like he's just so good as a penalty killer. It's going to be hard for him if he doesn't get the assignments, I feel like, because I think that's one of the parts of his game that he prides himself on. Look at how many shorthanded goals he's got in his career. And you know that he cares a lot about that aspect of the game. And quite frankly, without him in your penalty kill as often, your penalty kill is not going to be as good. So you're going to have to find people who can fill in that are going to be able to do a good job. And I don't know if you have any other thoughts on the penalty kill before I switch over to the power play.
I was just gonna just quickly say you guys both raised really good points there. Scott, I never thought about the load management with Marchand as it pertains to the penalty kill. And to Bridget's point, I don't see Marchand happily deferring those minutes, but
let me be very clear. Marchand is not going to be happy with any reduction in his minutes anywhere.
Right. But penalty kill minutes are it's like dog years. Like those are like a minute in penalty kill minute is like 5 minutes in real time because it's just you're blocking shots, you're stopping and starting. Those are tough minutes to play. So, you know, if certain players show that they are ready for more PK time up front, and Marchand can be convinced to look at the bigger picture. Brad, look, we kind of want we want to be pick and choose our spots with you at this point in your career because you're too valuable to our team. To then maybe he could be convinced. But it's a good point though, Scott. I haven't really thought about that, and it would be interesting to see if that does come to fruition at some point because it would take a lot of convincing for Marchand to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just thinking through it, like, because I'm just going through the lineup now in my head. So usually you have like 6 forwards who kill regularly. Like usually it's rotations of 2, and then you might have a couple other guys who sprinkle in here and there. And I think the Bruins now again they're not all as good as Brad Marchand. Maybe none of them are, but you're gonna have Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle. I think Trent Frederick started doing some PK last year and is probably going to do more. Johnny Beecher was already a big part of it as a rookie. And they've said all along how much they want to build in PK in Mark Kastelik's game. And he got a ton of PK time Sunday in the first preseason game, including like over a minute of a 5-on-3. So like that's 6 there. And, that's not even counting Marchand. So, that's 7 guys who I think are going to be able to handle it regularly. And then if Brazeau or Patra or someone else can add it in, like they should have options.
Yeah. Can any of them do it as well as Marchand? No. but yeah, you're right about that.
But do they have to though? Like if
that's the question.
If the system and the structure is in place, like can the Bruins, because the Bruins have had a great penalty kill for a long time, and Marchand's only on the ice. Not they're successful when he's not on the ice too. In addition to when he's on the ice, so like I think it could be kind of like I don't think it's as black and white as it seems. Like they could probably he would still be PK, but like to Scott's point, instead of 2.5 minutes, going to be 1 minute or 1.5 minutes a game. Like I don't know, we'll see.
And sometimes it's about the momentum that you take out of the penalty kill too. When you have someone like Marchand, sometimes you can create that momentum swing with a strong kill, and with the energy that he brings there. So it's just another thing that he adds with the penalty kill, besides just doing a good job blocking shots, stealing pucks, whatever. It's trying to change the tides back in your favor when the power play is over. So, but not to go too far into that. I'm sure we'll talk about that plenty this season, especially if we notice reduced numbers for Marchand on the PK. But in terms of the power play, they have holes they need to fill too. And obviously, Elias Lindholm is going to come in, and it's not even that he's replacing anybody from last year, because DeBrusk didn't play the same position on the power play that Lindholm's going to play, but he's replacing, a year delayed a Patrice Bergeron, because in the bumper, right? Like they've been looking for another guy that can play the bumper. They've tried Coyle there. They've tried Zacha there. I don't think either of them have done it perfectly. And that's probably because we're so used to Patrice Bergeron being pretty much one of the best in the game at it. So can Elias Lindholm come in and play more like Bergeron in that position on the power play? And then you're trying to fill Jake DeBrusk's spot, because he did get quite a bit of power play time, and you're probably auditioning similar people. You're probably auditioning Matt Patra and Justin Brazeau to take up time on the power play too.
Yeah, the net front, I think 4/5 of the top unit is pretty set. Montgomery's already said McAvoy's the QB. Pastrnak and Marchand are there, and Elias Lindholm's in the bumper. So it's that net front role, and I think Brazeau has a shot at that. Trent Frederick has a shot at that. Coyle or Zacha, like they've both played it a little. Zacha got the first look there in practice, so we'll see if that sticks. I don't know that they really have an ideal solution there, honestly. Like I'm kind of intrigued to see if Brazeau becomes it. Like, I feel like he's looked good when he's been there. But I don't know if that's how they're going to start. Also worth mentioning while we're here, like Elias Lindholm's still not on the ice. He was out for the first practice on Thursday, skated, and has not been on the ice with the team since. Montgomery originally said he thought Lindholm was going to give it a shot Monday or Tuesday, and he didn't. He wasn't on the ice either day. Montgomery on Tuesday morning said he's still day-to-day, but he's not going to play in a game this week. So that's going to put you through 4 preseason games that he's not going to play in. So just 3 left at that point. And, if he gets into maybe, say, 2 of those final 3, then that's not an issue. Like, presumably you play Pastrnak those same 2 games. 2 preseason games, I think is fine for them in a bunch of practices. But if this continues to linger, like it's not ideal for someone coming into a new team, first line center, builds chemistry with Pastrnak. Like obviously that's hit a little bit of a snag. It's now dragging on. It seems a little longer than initially anticipated.
Yeah, and so the only time we've gotten a chance to see that Zacha, Lindholm, Pastrnak line was the very first day of camp, and it looked good. I mean, he was even in the column that Scott and I wrote following the first day or two. I think it was following the first day of preseason or of camp, and it was a fast line. It looked like it was going to be a dominant line. Like it looked like it has the potential to be one of the top lines in the league, to be honest with you, if they're all healthy and playing together and building on what they already had been doing from day one. So I was excited to see it continue through training camp. Obviously, we've hit pause on that. So really important, I think, to get him back before the end of preseason to work on the chemistry. It's a new line combination. Obviously, Zacha and Pasta have worked together quite a bit in the past, but with a different center, it's all a little bit different. So I think that they'll build that comfortability, and the good news is they already looked pretty good together to start with. So I'm not super worried about it unless the injury is some sort of nagging injury that came from the first day of camp, which is never ideal.
Well, it would have had to have been because, I mean, it's possible he tweaked something lifting, I guess, but off the ice. But because on the ice, I mean, he participated that full first practice, and if I remember correctly, it was a lot of rush drills. There was some in zone, battles. There was a couple, but unless he blocked a shot. But again, guys aren't really ripping it in practice that first day. Maybe he just, I don't know. I didn't notice anything, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know if you guys did.
No, nothing stood out to me. And by the way, Geeky too has been skating again. I forget if you said that already, but he seems to be okay. He had a little bup a shake up in the black and gold game, but he looks like he's right back out there.
Who, before we get to the up and down, I would say Geeky is another name that could get some attention on that net front presence role in the power play as well.
Yeah, he's pretty big.
And another guy's going to get a look at second line right wing, which is where he skated in Tuesday's practice with the non-game group. He was with Coyle and Marchand. Max Jones, the other, I guess, injury update here. He played in the black and gold game. I didn't see him get hurt. Someone said they thought he kind of got into a collision that might have been the injury, but he was off the ice Tuesday. Wasn't with the non-game group, didn't play in the game, obviously. But Montgomery said he's also day-to-day and is expected to play before the end of the week. So sounds like he'll be back possibly Wednesday, possibly, maybe by the time people actually even listen to this. And
maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he also got some net front power play time in Anaheim on a unit with Brian Getzlaff and probably Cam Fowler and some others. So they're going to have, just to kind of put a bow on that power play discussion, there's going to be some options for that net front role for both units.
All right, I want to get to who's up, who's down quickly because your girl's got to go to the Cape in a few minutes. So we gotta do this a little quicker than expected. But sorry guys. This is my last hurrah before hockey season takes over my entire life. So we'll start with the ups. And we all agreed on 2 or 3 of these ups. I think, yeah. So I'm going to go with Patra first because I think that he's been the most consistently up player, the performing to the standard that he would need to make the team. And I think even showing progress from last camp because I think he's a little bit more confident. He's bigger. I think there's a lot of positive signs that he can make a pretty big impact on this team this year. So, though he came into camp with a question mark just because of the shoulder surgery and are these other guys, somehow passing him, I think that it's pretty early on, only the first week he's kind of put that to bed. So good for him.
Yeah, I'll use my up to give my thoughts on the person that was Bridget's lead, and that's Jonas Korpisalo, who we got to see in his first game action as a Bruin. He played the first half of Tuesday's game, as you guys said, and I really liked what I saw. Yes, it was only 7 shots, but he was so natural stat trick credited him with 2 high danger saves. I counted 3, so I'm not sure which. 3 of them were guys in alone on him, so I don't know which one of those wouldn't have counted as high danger.
Yeah, there was one.
Montgomery said there were 4 hard saves that he liked seeing. So whatever number you pick, it was like half of his saves were high danger, basically. So he looked pretty calm. I thought rebound control for the most part looked good. Again, it's a small sample. It's half a game. It's 7 shots. But especially with Busty and DPH are looking a little shaky to start. And with Swayman still not signed, you need something to feel good about in the goaltending department. And for half a game, Korpisalo provided it.
Yeah, there was one chance that he stopped that was definitely a high danger chance where somehow Carlo and Lindholm got split and guy got in and got the shot off. So yeah, I think that you're right. There had to be at least 3 that I can remember that were difficult in close shots.
So I'm going to go off the board a little bit, guys, and go with Billy Sweezy. And I think that in him, I think the Bruins have found their 8th defenseman behind Parker Wotherspoon on the depth chart. Obviously, you have McAvoy, Zadorov, Carlo, Lindholm, Lohrei, Peak. Then I think it's Wotherspoon. And then I think it's Billy Sweezy. And I've just really – some may remember him from fighting Jacob Lauko when Sweezy was on Columbus back in maybe a year or 2 ago. And I believe he's a local.
His dad was celebrating in the stands.
Yeah. Where's he from? Do you guys know where he's from?
He's from Hanson.
Okay. And Bridget will probably mention in a minute that he spent time at Yale because she got a chance to watch him. Yeah. So she can give a little bit more insight to his game. But from what I've seen, just a sturdy, physical, hard-working defenseman that I also, straddled the blue line and got a shot on net for the Bruins' first preseason goal of the game, which was scored on a rebound by Koepka. But I just think he's had a solid camp in practice, in games, and I think that he's showing the Bruins, hey, if you guys go down a defenseman, third pair guy, you need somebody to fill in, play hard, physical, and I think they have their guy there. So 8th on the depth chart, I think, is probably the spot he's won. I think that's good enough to get himself some NHL games at some point this year.
Yeah, I knew that he was physical. I knew he was going to bring that, and we've certainly seen him land a couple good hits. But I've been impressed with the way he reads and breaks up plays. He just looks like really calm and composed back there. He's made simple passes. It's not going to be anything flashy in terms of offense or transition. But even last night, there's I forget who the forward was with them, but it was like a 2-on-1, potentially 2-on-2 coming back at the Bruins. And he was the defenseman, and he's directing the forward, to take the other guy on the rush. And the forward comeback didn't really get there in time, but the guy holding the puck tried to kind of cut inside Sweezy, and he just broke it up and turned it back the other way. It was almost like, hey, take him. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I got this. We're okay, guys. And it was just it was just a really smooth, solid defensive play.
I want to just quickly throw 2 more names in here. We don't even have to go over it because Kuntar didn't play last in game 2, but he played in game 1. We thought he did well. You guys kind of disagreed with me, or at least Scott did. I think Riley Tufte's had a good camp so far. He scored in game 2. He played well in the black and gold game as well. I just see him as a great 4th line option. He's huge. He's 6'6", which is the same height as Zadorov. And he can be net front. He can do good things net front, and he just seems like he can impose his size on people, and that's why I think that he could be a fit on the fourth line or an extra forward. So don't sleep on him as an option there. But I want to get to the downs because we got like
just on Tuffy, just so we're clear, he's an up overall. Like I'm not saying he's a down. I just thought he had a couple tough shifts Tuesday night as well. He had one really bad turnover in his own zone. But no, he's an up overall for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And then down, we talked about this goaltending. Unfortunately, Bussy and DiPietro, a little bit shaky. We've seen just about 60 minutes of DiPietro at this point, so I'm sure Brendan Bussy gets in next game and looks to kind of recover and look a little stronger.
Yeah, definitely. Again, Bussy gave up 2 goals on Sunday. One he was screened. One was a good shot, but stoppable. DiPietro's definitely looked shaky. He gave up a really soft goal Sunday, and then only gives up he gave up 2 on Tuesday as well. But the first one in particular was like the puck's just kind of like bouncing around right in the crease, and that's one that you just need your goalie to cover. Like you just have to do whatever you do to find it and trap it under your glove or fall on it, do whatever you have to do. And he just kind of like almost seemed timid, didn't really make a move for it. And next thing you know, pops out to the side. And I think it was McMichael buried it for the Capitals.
Bridget, let's get you out of here. I think the next game for the Bruins is Thursday night against the Rangers. I think you can expect every other day game schedule for the Bruins in preseason until opening night. I think they're just about playing every other day. So plenty to break down until opening night. Yeah, it turns out I picked the wrong weekend to go to Quebec, guys, because I think the Bruins are playing there in like a week or two. But hey, it is what it is.
And you have to have ESPN Plus to watch that one. So just
I think it might be on ESPN regular channel as well.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Nesson had a graphic last night that said that it wouldn't be on linear TV. So maybe it will, maybe it won't, I guess. Or you could just go to Quebec and watch it.
Yeah. And go to Cafe St. Jean, whatever it was called for poutine that Scott recommended. All right. Thank you all for listening. We will reconvene on Friday after the Thursday night game and wrap up our coverage for the week. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.